I asked Tarot about my soulmate and saw his face in the spread. No, seriously. His exact eyes, the freckle on his left cheek, the way his hands looked when he held my coffee mug in the morning. It was like the deck had decided to mock me. And before you roll your eyes and write me off as some delusional woman with too many crystals and not enough common sense, let me say this: I didn't used to be like this. I was normal, practical, married. My name's Morgan. I'm 31. And if you told me 5 years ago that I'd be clutching tarot cards like they were lifelines, I would have laughed, rolled my eyes, and offered you a wine spritzer. Back then, I had a life I thought was fine, stable, predictable. I had a husband named Eli who was the human version of a warm sweater, soft, reliable, and maybe a little boring if I'm honest. But he loved me in a quiet, steady way. He made me coffee every morning before I even woke up. He remembered my mom's birthday. He folded my laundry better than I did. And I was restless. Not unhappy exactly, just itchy, like I was wearing someone else's life. I scrolled Instagram and saw women finding themselves in Bali, becoming digital nomads, writing poetry in their journals, discovering their inner goddess under the moonlight. Meanwhile, I was meal prepping and paying utility bills. No spontaneous dance under the stars, just grocery receipts and tax deductions. That's when I found tarot. At first, it was just for fun. A little pick a card, reading on YouTube after work, a glass of wine in hand. I didn't even believe it, but then something shifted. One night I asked, "What's next for me in love?" The card I pulled was the Lovers, not just once. 3 times, 3 decks, 3 lovers. I mean, come on, how was I supposed to ignore that? I took it as a sign. A sign that love, real love, epic love, meant to be, soul contract love, was out there. And the uncomfortable truth that settled in my gut like a stone. I didn't think Eli was it. But I didn't say anything, not at first. Instead, I started pulling away. Spiritually, emotionally. I started journaling about soulmates and twin flames. I began reading blogs about energetic mismatches and outgrowing karmic partners. I'd lie in bed beside him at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was wasting my life next to a man who loved me, but didn't ignite me. Then I met Tyler. He was everything Eli wasn't: loud, intense, unpredictable. The kind of guy who ordered mezcal with chili powder rims and looked you dead in the eyes when he talked about reincarnation. He was into crystals, shadow work. He had a tarot deck in his backpack. I told myself we were just spiritually aligned. That was the first lie. The second was that nothing happened. Because something did happen. A lot of somethings. I cheated. I blamed the universe. I told myself Eli was just my past life lesson and Tyler was my soul contract. How's that for spiritual gaslighting? When I finally confessed to Eli, I expected anger, screaming, maybe even violence. But he just looked at me and said, "Why?" I didn't have an answer that made sense outside my little tarot bubble, so I doubled down. I packed my bags, told him I needed to follow my path, that the universe was calling, that I was becoming someone new. God, what a line of bullshit. Eli didn't fight me. He let me go with the same quiet dignity he had shown our whole marriage. Just like that, I was gone, convinced I was chasing destiny. Cut to a year later. Tyler was long gone. Shocker, turns out twin flames often crash and burn. He ghosted me after a fight about polyamory and a girl named Sage who stayed over as friends. My life looked like a boho Pinterest board. Mismatched tapestries, incense, a vision board with pictures of wedding dresses and soulmate quotes. And me? Alone, meditating daily, journaling at sunrise, pulling cards like my future depended on it. And maybe, in a way, it did. One night, I asked the question that started it all. Who is my future husband? I did a full spread, 3 decks, no distractions, candlelight. I was focused, open, ready for the truth. The first card, the 6 of Cups, nostalgia, past love, innocence. The second, the Hierophant, tradition, marriage, structure. The third, the King of Cups, emotionally mature, deep, kind. I stared at those cards, and my throat went dry. Because whether I liked it or not, the image in my mind was crystal clear. Eli. It wasn't just the traits, it was him, the way he used to hold my face when I cried, the gentle way he'd say, "You're safe." The time he drove 2 hours to get my favorite soup when I had the flu, the tiny notebook he used to keep track of our inside jokes. I hadn't just pulled cards, I'd pulled a memory. And for the first time in over a year, I panicked. What if I had walked away from the love of my life because of a fucking card? What if I had burned everything down in search of a flame that already lived inside my own home? What if Eli wasn't just a good man, but the man? And what if I was already too late? Because as the candle flickered and the incense turned to ash, one terrifying truth rose in my chest like bile. You don't always get a second chance. But I had to try. Even if he hated me, even if he'd moved on. I had to find out if the deck was showing me hope or punishment. And that's how my journey back to Eli began, with a single card, a sick feeling in my stomach, and a hope I didn't deserve. It had been 13 months and 4 days since I walked out of Eli's life. 13 months of chakra balancing, full moon intentions, and self-proclaimed healing. I told anyone who'd listen that I was evolving, transforming, stepping into my divine feminine. But if I was really evolving, why did the sight of those tarot cards make me want to throw up? Why was my first instinct to find his number? I hadn't heard from Eli since the divorce was finalized. No texts, no emails, not even a "hope you're well." He was like a ghost I wasn't allowed to mourn. And now, I was thinking of summoning him back like some desperate witch who'd cast the wrong spell. I still remembered his number. Of course I did. I must have stared at it for 20 minutes. Thumb hovering over the call button, heart hammering. What would I even say? "Hey, I know I cheated on you, left you for a guy who saged his bedsheets, and blamed it on the universe, but wanna grab coffee?" Yeah, that would go over well. So I didn't call. Instead, I did what any terrified millennial woman does when she can't face her own past. I went to Instagram. I hadn't checked Eli's page since the breakup. I told myself it was a boundary, but really it was fear. Fear that he'd moved on, that he was happy, that I didn't matter anymore. And there he was, first post in months. A photo of him on a hiking trail, sun beaming on his face, a dog, wait, he got a dog, panting beside him. Caption, "New trails, new beginnings." I wanted to scream. He looked good, thinner somehow, confident. There was a calm around his eyes that hadn't been there when we were together. The comments were filled with supportive friends, emojis, a few women with "OMG, so proud of you" vibes that made my stomach twist. One comment stopped my breath. "Tell Michelle I'm obsessed with this dog. You guys are the cutest." Michelle. Of course there was a Michelle. I clicked her name like it was a loaded gun. Her profile was private, but her bio said, "Therapist, nature lover, dog mom." Wait, what? Was he engaged? No. The cards hadn't shown a wedding. They'd shown him. They wouldn't be that cruel. I shut my phone like it could bite me and stumbled into my bathroom. I stared at myself in the mirror. Same girl Eli had loved, but different. Tired, pale, eyes a little harder now. I'd spent a year healing and felt more hollow than ever. And I kept thinking, if the cards showed Eli, then either the universe was sending me back to make it right, or it was just rubbing salt in a wound I'd sliced open myself. I needed advice. But not from friends. Most of them were Eli's first. After the split, I curated a new circle, other spiritual girls mostly. People who talked about Saturn returns and karmic cycles, but none of them knew me before I fell down the crystal rabbit hole. So I did something I hadn't done since the day I left Eli. I called my sister. Amber answered on the third ring. Morgan. Her voice was hesitant. I couldn't blame her. We hadn't exactly ended on good terms. "Hey," I said, "I need to talk." There was a pause, then you okay? No, I admitted. Can I come over? Her place hadn't changed. Same yellow throw pillows, same scent of peppermint and laundry detergent. Her kids were with their dad for the weekend, thank God. We sat at her kitchen table like old times. She made me tea without asking what kind, she just knew. I tried not to cry. I saw Eli, I said quietly. She raised an eyebrow. You ran into him. No, online, he looks happy, like really happy. There's this woman, Michelle. I've met her, she interrupted. My stomach dropped. You have. She nodded, ran into them at the farmer's market. She's lovely, sweet, grounded. Grounded, the exact word tarot readers used when they meant better than you. He's engaged, isn't he? Amber looked at me for a long beat. They're serious, yeah. I stared down at my tea. I think I made the biggest mistake of my life. Amber didn't say anything. She just reached across the table and squeezed my hand. It was worse than yelling. I pulled a spread, I whispered. 3 cards, they all pointed to him. Morgan. No, listen. I think I know I was wrong. I thought I was chasing some spiritual awakening, but I was just running from how normal and good Eli was. And now it's too late. Amber was quiet for a long time. I think, she said finally, you should tell him. I blinked. What? You hurt him, badly, but if the only reason you're staying silent is pride, then at least give yourself a chance to say what you need to say. Maybe he'll slam the door in your face. Maybe he won't, but you won't know unless you show up. So that's what I did. The next morning, I drove to our old neighborhood, the dog park nearby, the Trader Joe's he always liked. I didn't know what I was looking for. Until I saw him. Eli. At a cafe patio, holding a to-go cup, smiling at a woman sitting across from him. I couldn't see her face, just the edge of a caramel coat and a gentle laugh I could hear from the sidewalk. Michelle. She reached for his hand. He laced his fingers with hers, natural, intimate, effortless. And I stood there, frozen, clutching a tote bag full of regret. I didn't say anything, didn't cause a scene, I just walked past like I didn't know him at all. Because in that moment, I realized something brutal. Maybe I had seen my soulmate in the tarot cards. But that didn't mean he was still mine. I spent the next 3 days in a kind of grief that didn't have a name. It wasn't just heartbreak. It wasn't just jealousy. It was this black hole kind of sadness that swallowed every thought I had, every breath I took. It was watching someone you once called home build a brand new house on your old foundation and not even hang a picture of you inside. I told myself I wouldn't reach out, that I'd respect his new relationship, his peace. I told myself the cards weren't prophecy, that they were just symbols, mirrors, reflections of the past maybe, not a cosmic GPS. But the truth, I wasn't noble, I wasn't healed, I was desperate. And I wanted Eli back. It started with a text. Just one. Hey, I saw you the other day. You looked happy, I'm glad. Neutral, not flirty, not invasive. I read it 50 times before I hit send. My heart hammered in my chest like a warning bell. No response. That night I pulled another spread, just one card this time. I begged the deck for clarity. I pulled the Tower. Great catastrophe, collapse, sudden upheaval. I threw the card across the room and started crying. The next day, I emailed him. Subject, closure. I told myself I just wanted to talk, that I needed to apologize properly, that it wasn't about getting him back, it was about owning my mistakes. Another lie. His reply came 24 hours later. It was polite, distant. Morgan. I appreciate you reaching out. I'm not sure what there is to say, but if you truly need closure, I'm willing to meet for a short conversation. Just once. Eli. Just once. We met at a bookstore cafe, not the one we used to go to, a neutral place. New, clean. When he walked in, I felt my lungs stop working. He looked older, but in the best way. like time had made him stronger, sharper. There was this quiet confidence in the way he held himself, in the way he looked at me, not like I was dangerous or pathetic. Just someone he used to know. "Hi," I said, my voice broke. "Hey," he sat down, not removing his coat, his hands folded neatly on the table. There was a long silence. "You look good," I offered, trying not to cry already. "So do you." "I didn't deserve that." I wanted to say I'm sorry," I said. "For everything. For leaving the way I did, for how I made you feel. You didn't deserve that." He nodded slowly, eyes unreadable. "Thank you." I swallowed hard. "I know you probably hate me." "I don't." That hurt more than if he did. "But I don't trust you either," he continued. "And I don't think we're meant to be in each other's lives anymore." I flinched. What if I made a mistake? His eyes softened just a little. "We all make mistakes, Morgan. I made mine when I ignored the signs you weren't happy, when I tried to love you out of your confusion. I thought love could fix everything. I was wrong." Tears filled my eyes. "I pulled a spread," I said, barely above a whisper, "and everything pointed to you." His jaw tightened. "You think a deck of cards gets to decide whether we should be together?" "No, yes. I don't know. I feel like I walked away from something real, and I've been chasing illusions ever since." He sighed, long and quiet. "I loved you," he said, "deeply. I would have done anything for you, but you left. And you didn't just leave, you ran. And I've spent the last year trying to rebuild my life from that. I'm finally happy again. I'm finally with someone who doesn't make me feel like I'm a plan B." I winced. "I never thought of you that way." "But you acted like it." He stood up. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Morgan, but it's not me." And just like that, he walked away. I sat there for over an hour, clutching a cold coffee I never drank. At some point, the barista came over and asked if I was okay. I smiled too brightly and told her yes, then went into the bathroom and sobbed until my eyeliner bled. I couldn't breathe. I had waited too long. That night, I did something even I knew was crazy. I went to the tarot reader who had first introduced me to the concept of twin flames a year ago. Her name was Indigo, and she worked out of a crystal shop that always smelled like sage and patchouli. When she saw me, her face lit up. "You've changed," she said, her voice melodic, "but your aura is clouded." I sat down. "I think I ruined everything." She nodded like she already knew. I laid out the question. "Is there any chance Eli and I are meant to be?" She shuffled, eyes closed, drew 3 cards. 5 of Cups. 10 of Swords. The world. She looked at them, then at me. "I see loss," she said gently. "I see a betrayal that's still healing, but I also see an ending that is complete. The world doesn't lie. This cycle is over." I wanted to scream. "But," she continued, "the world also means rebirth, the chance to begin again, just not with the same person." I nodded, tears slipped down. "Sometimes," she said softly, "we confuse destiny with desire. We want something so badly we call it fate, but fate doesn't beg. Fate doesn't chase. Fate doesn't need to convince someone to love you." That night, I deleted the tarot apps on my phone. Not because I stopped believing, but because I knew I'd been using them as crutches, as excuses, as weapons. I wasn't listening to my intuition. I was outsourcing my life to cards because I didn't want to face myself. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me in the name of divine timing. And the universe. She wasn't cruel. She just doesn't babysit. You'd think that would have been the end of it, right? That a woman could walk out of a cafe with mascara running down her cheeks, clutching the remains of a shattered future, and finally accept the lesson. Let go, heal, move on. But grief isn't neat like that. It's not a clean break, it's a slow unraveling. I wish I could tell you I got better right after that. That the cards lost their power over me and I stopped looking for Eli in every shadow. But that's not what happened. What happened is this. I fell apart, quietly, invisibly, methodically. I stopped going to the gym, stopped meditating. The crystals gathered dust. I still lit candles, but not for intention, just for light, when I couldn't stand the cold white glow of my bathroom fixtures. I started pulling cards again. Secretly, I told myself I was just curious, that I was trying to understand. I asked things like, does he still think about me? Is Michelle really the one? Will we meet again in another life? Pathetic. Then one morning, out of nowhere, I got a DM from a mutual friend. I hadn't heard from Julia in months. Hey, just thought you should know, Eli and Michelle set a date. September 12th. Beach wedding, he looks really happy. That was it, that was the moment. The one where all the walls I'd built to keep the truth out finally crumbled. Because it wasn't a warning, it wasn't even gossip. It was just a fact, a life update, the kind you give when someone used to matter but doesn't anymore. I stared at that message for 10 minutes, my mouth dry. September 12th. That was the day Eli and I had taken our first trip together, years ago. A weekend in Big Sur, where he'd burned our dinner and we'd eaten peanut butter out of the jar on the balcony, laughing like idiots. He was marrying someone else on our weekend. I couldn't breathe. I pulled a card. The Fool. New beginnings. I laughed. I actually laughed. The kind of laugh that sounds like a sob got lost in a scream. I swept the deck off my desk, cards scattering like regrets across the floor. That night, I got drunk. I mean obliterated. I texted Eli again. I told him I remembered Big Sur, that I still loved him, that Michelle would never understand him like I did, that we were meant to be. I hit send and blacked out. The next morning, I woke up to a single reply. Please stop, I'm asking you one last time, let me go. No anger, just exhaustion. And that's when the shame finally set in. Not the romantic, poetic kind of heartbreak shame I'd been bathing in for months. No, this was cold, metallic, surgical. This was self-awareness. I was that ex, the one who couldn't let go, the one who became a footnote in someone else's love story. I used to be the main character. Now I was a cautionary tale. I wanted to disappear. But life, apparently, wasn't done rubbing it in. A week later, my sister invited me to brunch. She knew everything at this point about the cafe, the tarot, the texts. She held me through panic attacks and poured wine when I cried. She never judged, just waited. That Sunday, I showed up in an oversized hoodie and sunglasses, trying to disappear into the wallpaper of her favorite local spot. And that's when I saw them. Eli and Michelle. At a corner table, holding hands over coffee, laughing. I froze. Amber put her hand on my arm. Morgan, don't. But it was too late. They hadn't seen me yet, and I couldn't stop staring. Michelle looked radiant in a way I never had, effortless, open. She didn't have to perform. She didn't have to align her chakras to be lovable. She just was. And Eli. He looked at her like she was his beginning, not his recovery. She stood up to use the restroom, and in a moment I still regret, I stood too. I crossed the room, slowly, my body buzzing. He saw me as I approached, his face changed, not surprise, not anger. Just sadness. Hi, I whispered. Hi, he said, calm, guarded. I sat down across from him without asking. I'm not here to cause drama, I needed to see you. You saw me the other day, he said gently. I know, but it didn't feel real. He nodded once, letting the silence stretch. I'm sorry, I said again, not just for what I did, for not realizing what I had until it was gone. Eli's eyes were soft, but his jaw was firm. I loved you, Morgan, he said, but I can't keep reliving it. Michelle is my present and my future, and she deserves to be more than a placeholder in your apology tour. My throat tightened. She's not. I believe you, he said, but that doesn't change anything. Just then Michelle returned to the table. She saw me. Her smile faltered. I'll go, I said, standing. But before I did, I turned to her. "You're lucky," I said. She tilted her head. "So is he." I left, and I never contacted him again. Because that moment, the three of us, standing in a triangle of past, present, and future, was the closure I didn't know I needed. It was the final card in a spread I had refused to finish. After that brunch, something inside me broke, and not in a poetic way. Not like a heart cracking open to let in light. More like a dam collapsing under the weight of all the denial I'd been hoarding. I went home and slept for 17 hours. When I woke up, I deleted every tarot app, unfollowed every spiritual influencer who had ever told me that the universe will align when you're in your truth, and threw my entire deck in the trash. I was done. Not with Eli. That ache was still there, lodged somewhere between my ribs and my lungs. But I was done pretending that I could manifest my way out of consequences. Done acting like the world owed me a do-over just because I'd slapped the word healing on my wreckage. But being done doesn't mean being okay. And what followed was, honestly, the darkest stretch of my life. I stopped going out. Friends stopped texting. My sister checked in, gently at first, then firmly. "You need help," she said one night over the phone. Like real, professional help. "I'm fine," I whispered, which was the biggest lie of all. I was drinking again, not like party girl drinking. This was quiet, ritualistic. A glass of wine while watching his wedding countdown on a mutual friend's page. Another while scrolling through Michelle's smiling face, trying to hate her and failing. I thought I'd hit bottom when I texted him after the cafe. But the real bottom came later, when I showed up at his old apartment building and realized I had nowhere else to go. Not even to myself. One night, I was sitting on my floor, surrounded by unfolded laundry and empty tea mugs, when I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi Morgan, this is Tanya. I used to do readings at Sacred Earth. Amber gave me your number. I'm not trying to sell you anything, I just wanted to reach out. She said you might need someone to talk to." I stared at the message for a long time. Amber. Of course. I almost didn't reply, but then I did. "I'm not looking for tarot anymore." She wrote back right away. "Good, I'm a licensed therapist now. Want to come in for a session?" It was like the universe was giving me a different kind of reading, one I couldn't argue with, so I said yes. Tanya's office smelled like eucalyptus and hope. She had gentle eyes and didn't ask me to explain why I was there. I told her everything. The marriage, the affair, the tarot cards, the breakdown, the stalking, the regret. She didn't flinch once. Instead, she said something that stuck with me. "You thought tarot was showing you your future, but what it was really showing you was your unfinished business." I broke. Because she was right. I'd been treating spirituality like a vending machine. Insert a question, get an answer. I didn't want to do the work, I wanted a cosmic shortcut. And now I had nothing left but the work. Therapy wasn't magical, it wasn't dramatic. There were no crystal epiphanies, no sudden waves of clarity. It was just slow, painful, honest. We talked about why I'd left Eli, not just the affair, but the boredom, the fear of becoming someone's wife and nothing more. We talked about why I'd clung to Tyler, why I needed to believe in soulmates instead of looking in the mirror. We talked about guilt, about obsession, about the difference between love and longing. And every week, I peeled back another layer of my grief. I wasn't mourning Eli. I was mourning who I had been when he loved me. 6 weeks into therapy, Tanya gave me an assignment. "Write him a letter," she said, "but don't send it, just get it out." So I did. I poured everything into it. 5 pages of regret, gratitude, memories, apologies. I wrote about the peanut butter balcony, the way he used to hum when he cooked, the time he stayed up all night helping me finish my grad school thesis, even though he had a flight at 6 a.m. I ended the letter like this. "I hope you get everything I couldn't give you. I hope Michelle holds your hand the way I used to, only softer. I hope she sees you the way I should have. And I hope, wherever you are, you've stopped thinking of me when it rains. Because I haven't stopped thinking of you. I cried while I folded it and tucked it in a box under my bed. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I needed to chase him. Eli got married 3 days later. I didn't go looking for the photos, but they found me anyway. My old roommate posted a story: white sand, blue ocean, a canopy of flowers, Eli in a tan suit, Michelle barefoot, laughing, sunlight everywhere. He looked happy. And I felt, not angry, not broken. Just quiet. It was over. Not just him, the whole fantasy. The idea that I could undo the wreckage with a single confession or pull of a card. The idea that he'd always be mine to come back to. He belonged to someone else now. And I was finally starting to belong to myself. 3 days after Eli's wedding, I did something I didn't expect of myself. I sent him a wedding gift. No, not to his home, not even to the venue. I mailed it to his office, the one he used to come home from, collapsing into our bed and telling me how brutal his day had been. I still remembered the address, which said more about me than I wanted to admit. It was just a book. A signed copy of The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, his favorite. The one I'd ruined with coffee stains during our 2nd year of marriage, then laughed about like it didn't matter. Inside, I wrote a note. For the days ahead, may your love be quiet, deep, and yours. No need to respond. M. That was it. I sent it not to reopen the door, but to close mine, for good. A week later, I got an email. No subject, no signature, just this. Thank you, that was kind. I wish you peace, Morgan. And that's when I knew he'd forgiven me. Not because he said so. Because he no longer had anything to protect. Eli had built a new life. And I wasn't in it. You might think this is the part where I found someone new, that I went on some wild dating spree and met a man who looked like Jason Momoa but read Brené Brown in the bath. Nope. I stayed single. Painfully, intentionally single. At first, I tried dating. I downloaded apps. I went for drinks. I let men compliment my eyes and pretend to care about my moon sign. I even dated a guy who brought his own deck of tarot to dinner. I walked out halfway through the meal. Because I wasn't looking for a replacement anymore. I wasn't looking for Eli's shadow in someone else's outline. I was learning to look for me. And I didn't always like what I saw. But it was honest. I started volunteering at a shelter on weekends. Not because it looked good on Instagram, but because handing out towels and organizing canned food made me feel grounded. I went to therapy twice a week. Cried about stupid things, like the time Eli left a note in my lunch bag, and big things, like how I had never really believed I deserved love without proving something first. I picked up photography again, not the curated, sunlit kind, the real kind. The one where I shot fire escapes and peeling paint, and the way a woman's face collapses when she thinks no one's watching. I stopped chasing magic. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I found some. One day, I was in a bookstore, looking for nothing, when I saw it. A tarot deck. Not flashy, not wrapped in velvet, just a plain box with gold foil edges and a tiny note that said "Truth lives here." I stood there for a long time, hand hovering. And then I picked it up. But this time, I didn't pull cards to ask questions I already knew the answers to. I didn't beg the universe to give me shortcuts to the parts I hadn't earned. I took it home, I lit one candle, I opened the box. And I shuffled. No questions. Just curiosity. The first card I pulled. Death. I laughed. Not because I was scared, but because I finally understood. Death isn't about endings. It's about release. About making space for what's next. So here I am. No longer checking Eli's socials. No longer searching wedding hashtags for glimpses of what I lost. I still think of him. Of course I do. But it's different now. Softer. Like a scar I rub sometimes, not because it hurts, but because it reminds me of what healed. And Michelle. I wish her the kind of love I once had and threw away. Not out of malice, but because I wasn't ready. Because I thought more meant better. Because I believed love had to be explosive, unpredictable, cinematic. Now I know better. Now I know love can be steady, quiet, sacred. And sometimes, you lose it forever. Some stories have a happy ending. This one has a real one. It's been over a year since I saw Eli's face in a tarot spread and thought it meant fate. Since I chased closure like it could undo the past. Since I tried to love bomb my way back into the heart of someone I had already broken. Now, I live in a studio apartment on the top floor of an old building with creaky pipes and ivy-covered windows. My rent is stupid high, and my plants die more often than I'd like to admit, but it's mine. Every inch of it. There's no man making my coffee in the morning. But there's peace. Some days are hard. Like when I walk past the bookstore cafe and remember the last time I saw him. Or when Facebook shoves old photos into my feed with a cruel 1 year ago today. 1 year ago, I was still clawing at the past. Today, I'm learning to open my hands. Let go. Hold only what's mine. I still pull cards sometimes, but not like before. Now it's ritual, not rescue. Now I ask, what do I need to know about myself today? Not who's coming back. I've stopped treating love like a prize, or a fix, or a magic ticket to mattering. I don't need a soulmate to prove I'm worthy of being chosen. I need to choose me. People ask me sometimes, women I've met in therapy groups, online forums, even strangers at yoga who have somehow read between my lines. Do you regret it? God, yes. I regret the way I left. I regret thinking enlightenment meant escape. I regret treating a man's love like a default setting I could reset when I was ready. But regret isn't the end of the world. It's the beginning of awareness. Eli is married now. He and Michelle live in a quiet town 2 hours away. I know because a friend sent me a photo, unasked but not unwelcome. They were walking hand in hand, her pregnant belly round and beautiful. That's when I knew. He really had moved on. Not in spite of me, but because of me. Because I let go. Because I stopped chasing. Because I stopped forcing the story to end the way I wanted. And maybe that's love too. Not the staying, but the leaving. The not showing up uninvited. The not texting, I miss you at 2 a.m. The learning how to wish someone well, even when it's not with you. So no, this story doesn't end with us back together. It doesn't end with him knocking on my door saying, I never stopped loving you. It ends with me. Alone. But not lonely. It ends with me on a Sunday morning, barefoot on a sunlit floor, sipping coffee I made myself. A book in one hand, the window open, the city alive outside. And a little card on my nightstand. The world. Full circle. Completion. Integration. Not the end. The beginning. Because the truth is, I didn't lose my soulmate. I lost myself. And now I'm finding her again. Not in cards. Not in old love. Not in someone else's arms. But here. Now. In this life. This body. This quiet. This breath. And that's enough. It has to be. And maybe, someday, it will be more than enough. But even if it is, I'm still here. Still healing. Still choosing peace over proof. Still learning how to live without magic tricks. Still becoming someone I'd want to love. And that's real. That's mine. That's everything. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.